Super Mind Stretchers. It's got a charm to it.
I was fasting today, so I had like no coffee for like the first 2/3 of the day. Which
is that what fasting means? Just no coffee.
Just no coffee. That's the worst part of it for me.
The memorable part.
And ironically, you go a lot less fast after having no
I know,
coffee.
right? Why call it fast? They should more like slowing.
More like slowing.
That's what they should call it.
Okay, but you're obviously allowed to now because I can see you've got a cup of tea in your
I
hand.
do have a cup of tea. I've been holding off on this one just to see.
What are you
The
rocking?
smells so fruity. It's called Glow. It was in a bright
Glow?
red pack. Glow, which I'm hoping has some kind of, skin properties connotation, or it's just kind of like it's radioactive or something. Either way, I'm looking forward to it. It said cucumber. It said aloe vera. It said strawberry. I haven't tasted it yet. I was saving the taste for on mic because historically for me, I'm always disappointed at how different the smell is for these kind of herbal fruity teas.
Sometimes they smell so strong and good.
All right, here we go.
Yep. A good slip. I'm on tea times.
Yeah. Okay.
Huh.
Okay.
How do they pair?
Definitely like not getting all the smells in the taste that I'm getting there, but it's pleasant. It's just, I don't know. I think I'm that juvenile in my taste buds that when it smells sweet and fruity, I'm just geared for something that tastes like cordial.
Yeah.
That's just a cup of hot water.
Yeah. Cordial was always the big thing. I've just finished watching The Studio, the new Seth Rogen show on Apple, where he plays like a studio head. And one of the through lines of that is that they make a big blockbuster film out of Kool-Aid. The powdered drink. Did we ever have that in Australia? That's a very American thing, isn't it?
Yeah, not really.
Did you see much Kool-Aid in your travels?
No, not really.
To me, it feels like cordial was our equivalent.
Right.
Like in Australia, like growing up, you'd have like a bottle of Coddies or just the generic stuff if you couldn't afford the Coddies.
It took me a while to know what they were talking about when they said Kool-Aid, but American shows did educate me eventually. But the phrase, to have drank the Kool-Aid, like to succumb to the cult or whatever, is a phrase that does carry over more so than the actual product.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely say that.
I say, well, he drank the Kool-Aid.
I feel like I learned that before learning about
definitely.
You really drank the cordial. That's what it should be.
Yeah. Why didn't I think that?
But we do have powdered drinks. We are fans of powdered drinks over here. We've got like your Milo and your Nesquik and things like that. Or Quick as it was just called when I was a kid, not Nesquik.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember when it was called Quick, Strawberry Quick. Strawberry was the best. Let's not beat around the bush. Strawberry Quick.
Yeah, I think when it came to more chocolate, I liked Milo better than the chocolate Quick. But I did like Milo. But yes, strawberry.
And Milo,
banana was okay.
Yeah, banana has that real banana like lolly flavor, which is something about those confectionery bananas.
There's something interesting about this was on QI, I think, about the banana taste and why banana taste doesn't taste like banana.
Yeah, right.
Because the confectioners that synthesized that banana taste were synthesizing the taste of a banana family, like genus, that has been extinct or something. And so now all the bananas in the world are an entirely different family of bananas, and the banana taste that comes from is extinct or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say if I messed up really badly at the chemical factory.
The Confectioners Guild were going to come after
you.
You
made this. Sorry, these don't taste anything like bananas.
No.
I was using an older classical banana.
What can we taste that? No, it's extinct.
It's extinct.
It's all extinct.
So
You
you
won't
just have
find
to
it.
trust this is what they tasted like. Perfectly.
We've got so many more questions,
Believe
but
me.
The Confectioners Guild rules state we can only really ask you 3 questions, and we've kind of gotten to the end of those 3.
Wish I didn't ask how you were when I walked in the room.
Should have asked for more questions.
Because I would absolutely want to ask, how did you get access to this extinct banana? No, but you can't legally.
Yeah,
I can't, can I? Ah, man. Oh, well.
Oh, can I? That's too many. Arrest that man. He asked 4 questions.
What? This doesn't taste like any banana I've Yeah, no. I went to a different school. These are bananas from a different school. These are the bananas from when I went on holiday. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know these bananas.
That is sort of similar to a story we had on a previous episode about, I can't remember what it was now, something from Southern California.
Frogs. I was just
frogs.
thinking it's like the frogs, how
That's
the ribbit sound of
that's it.
frogs is only from one particular kind of frog.
Yeah,
And you
and-
get these very localized things. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you mention that the what we think of pirates is that just that one guy?
Right.
Yeah.
From that
Everything
one
we know
rendition.
about pirates is that one actor from the Treasure Island who just made a acting choice to do like a West Country accent,
Right.
and dress like that, and now all the most powerful pirate tropes just come from this one guy who decided he was going to play Long John Silver like that, or whoever he was.
Yeah, because I guess what would the voices like? That's like when you try and think about what an Australian accent was in like colonial times. Would have obviously been something from Ireland and England, and other places. But even those accents would have been a bit different, like 200 years ago.
Yeah.
It's fun to think of what accents must have been like before recording.
Yeah.
The whole like Pirates of Penzance, like the joke is that Penzance was like the posh seaside holiday destination. And so I don't know what the equivalent would be. It'd be like Pirates of Brighton or Pirates of Byron Bay or something like that.
Right. Yeah. The real Pirates of Byron Bay.
That's a reality show I'd watch.
Yeah.
There's pirates have made enough of a comeback that just like a reality show about being a pirate, because there's a lot of tropical island-based reality shows.
Yeah.
Do they ever just get attacked by pirates on Survivor?
No.
Why
They could
not?
add that in, though.
Real
That's so many.
Housewives of the Caribbean.
Well, there was some great like lady pirates. Like the most epic pirate of all time was the Chinese pirate queen, and she was so fearsome that the Chinese government of the time, or the Chinese empire of the time, kept trying to fight her off with the navy, but she would just keep defeating the navy and just taking the boats and the soldiers captive, and they would just join her navy. So she ended up with a navy bigger than the Chinese navy at the time. But then she got sick of it and she didn't want to be a pirate anymore. And she tried to say that she was going to quit, but they kept coming after her. So in the end, she said, look, I want to retire, but you've got to leave me alone. And I want a pension. And I want a pension for all my pirate captains that are going to retire along with me.
Whoa.
And the empire decided that it was going to cost less than they were losing in terms of all these pirate raids.
Right.
So they granted her amnesty and granted her a pension.
Yeah.
And they just let her retire from piracy in exchange that
rad.
she wouldn't cause them any more trouble anymore.
When would this have been?
I'm going to say the 1700s.
Yeah.
I will fact check this one.
You'll
I
fact
don't
check
normally like to fact check on this show, but we've got to give this one. But famously, I cannot do two things at once. So you guys are going to vamp while I do this.
Let's vamp.
I did watch a video that was one of those, expert explains pirates or
Yeah.
whatever, and learnt a few little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And it does sound like, in terms of dress and voice and like how pirates of the time would have acted, was just localized to wherever they were from, because you could be from wherever, and they would just be sailors mostly. Apart from some real edge cases of notorious people, most would have just worn beanies because it would have been cold on deck, or depending where you were, if it was hot during that time of the year around the equator, you might wear whatever sailors would wear, and you'd have privateers who were the ones who were sort of enlisted into service by the Navy. So it sounded like there was it was people who, had captained ships maybe in the Navy before, had all the knowledge of boats and knew where to steal them. And it was just, did you have a piece of paper that said you were legal or not?
Because naval trading and like the big sort of naval mercantile boom of the 1600s onward was because before that, most trading, I think, was happening over land. It was only really when the British Empire and the Spanish empires started opening up trade routes to other continents and transporting stuff, transporting spice and things like that across places, that suddenly it became this thing of, we need ships, and whoever's got a ship, you can, join it. So that like the Dutch East India Company, that ended up having a larger navy than the Spanish Armada or the British Armada, and they were like a private company. And that was also the sort of rise of like the shareholder system. Like that was kind of the first time where you'd have these companies where anyone could trade anywhere, and it was like, well, we just need ships, but ships are expensive, so we need to get some capital together. So they would sell shares. It's like you could become a shareholder in this trading company,
right?
Speculatively, you could everyone could chip in a bit of money. We'll get some boats, we'll get some crew, we'll go off, and we'll be able to trade what we've got in our country with this other country and bring it back, and the profits will pay off the shares that everyone's put in.
Yeah.
And so it was the first time that kind of capital started getting eked away from the crown, like from the monarchy. So
Right.
instead of the monarchy being the most rich and powerful,
Business people.
yeah.
That's interesting. I liked at the end of Treasure Island, the book, which I only read for the first time in the last year, that at the very end of the book, there's it's got the trope, which I don't know if this was the first book to do it, but the sort of like what happened to them after the end of the book. It's like, this character went on to do this.
All right.
This character spent their money, sorry, spoilers, they do get some treasure.
There's a freeze frame of like Long John Silver jumping in the air. It's like Long John Silver graduated with.
That's how I read it.
Oh, that's cool. That's
And
interesting,
some of them
isn't
blew
it?
their treasure in like a month or something. Yeah.
I wonder how much of it was like based on real people or real kind of stuff at the time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because that's Treasure Island is Robert Louis Stevenson.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah, right.
Mm.
So I think he might have been one of these ones that used to write serialized books, and Treasure Island might have been one where they used to like publish it like a chapter at a time
I
in the
believe so.
newspaper.
That's how it kind of read.
Yeah,
It definitely
Okay.
felt like it was for kids as well. Like,
yeah.
but it holds up as like a fun read today. But
And I think it's why you get some of these unwieldy stories, because the novel, like the long form book, wasn't a mainstream form of literature for a while. So like Charles Dickens and Robert Louis Stevenson and Arthur Conan Doyle, who did like the Sherlock Holmes books, a lot of those started out as newspaper serials. So you'd get the newspaper, but there'd just be this like column, and that would be the next bit of that story.
Yeah.
Which is like interesting, like as a
Yeah.
precursor to like television, where it's like,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
wait till the next issue to find out what happened.
Yeah.
And people like Conan Doyle would, like, they wouldn't plot out a long plot. They would be making it up week to week and writing to this kind
Yeah,
of furious
right,
deadline,
right.
going, I've got to come up with another story and another chapter. And
Yeah.
I've written my character into this dead end, and then I've got to kind of figure out how to get them out of it again next week or next month. And Conan Doyle got so sick of writing Sherlock Holmes, he didn't want to do it anymore, so he killed off Sherlock Holmes. And that's the Reichenbach Falls.
Yeah.
That's when like he fights Moriarty and they go over the falls, and that was the end. And it was this national outcry, and people were really upset. And Sherlock Holmes, this character they all loved, and had gotten to know, is dead. And there was so much popular pressure that he brought him back. And that's
Right.
when like
Yeah.
he wrote another book, and he didn't actually die. He survived the fall over the falls, and he was just like beekeeping somewhere in the south of France. And
Right.
but it's funny how so many of these like modern like TV and film tropes and things have been around for so long.
Yeah.
Just in response to like
Yeah.
audience demand.
Yeah.
Release the Conan Doyle cut. So, okay, update on Shi Yang is her name, and she was born in 1775. So she was kind of active at the beginning of the 1800s. So I was close.
Mm.
And let's have a look at some stats here. As the unofficial commander of the Guangdong Pirate Confederation, her fleet was composed of 400 junks
oh,
and between 40 and 60,000 pirates in 1805. She entered into conflict with several major powers such as the East India Company, the Portuguese Empire, and Great Qing. In 1810, Sheng Yi Shao, so that's her other name. Oh, because she married a pirate named Sheng Yi at age 26, and then he died, and she took over his ship and his confederation of pirates.
nice.
Yeah, she negotiated a surrender to the Qing authorities that allowed her to retain a substantial fleet and avoid prosecution. And at the time of her surrender, she personally commanded 24 ships and over 1,400 pirates, and she died in 1844 at the age of about 68, having lived in relative peace and prosperity since the end of her career in piracy.
Whoa.
She's described as history's most successful female pirate and one of the most successful pirates in history. Good.
There
Yeah, wow.
you go, eh? Pirates were huge when I was a kid. I think my best friend in primary school had some pirate Lego, and so we just the lore and the allure of pirate ships, but that was a big one for me.
So
And
fun.
treasure and booby traps and
Absolutely.
All that. Yeah.
Well, the Treasure Island book that I read had illustrations as well, which I think came like not shortly after it was all compiled or finished as a serial. And so that was just drawn by someone of the time who based it off of inspiration from various bits of, culture that they picked up from around the world. And so a lot of the look of like, the bandana sort of look and that just came from sort of picking that out from other things. But it's just, there's so much fun stuff about it. Like there's so many different bits of fun stuff, like the peg legs and the like the ships.
And I was always more Indiana Jones than Star Wars, and I think it's just like this, even though sci-fi is great, but I've never found myself naturally being drawn to sci-fi as much as sort of like swashbuckling.
Just thinking of the word swashbuckling. What a good word. Something about swashbuckling.
Yeah. And also like anything like with like ancient Egyptian like tombs and discovery and maps and all that stuff was kind of, for me, is more like, because there's some weight brought to a story that's ancient. There's something about something being around, being so old, and that there's so many stories are enveloped within the MacGuffin or the.
Because when you're a kid, everything is older than you. Everything is ancient and equally ancient out there in the world. And the past is like just another place, and everything outside your door is like an exploration. It's just like places you haven't been, things you haven't seen. And then the idea of explorers and pirates and adventurers is like, well, what if there's places that no one's ever seen? What if I'm the first one that like even sees what's there? Maybe people don't even know. And you sort of slowly realize as you get older that, there's a lot more baggage to have. But but as a kid, it's just like, all right, these guys, pirates, they dress pretty wildly. They've got like pets, like birds and monkeys and things. They're out on a ship. They just carry around everything, swords, guns.
And they have these self-imposed quests.
Yeah.
For treasure.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, treasure. Treasure's a big one. It's like they just love treasure. They love gold. They love shiny things. Harry, my son, is obsessed with treasure.
Oh, yeah. Excellent news.
Shiny things. I introduced him to the idea of a metal detector the other day. So we had these like toy golf clubs that we were carrying around, like metal detectors, just like wandering around. But like for him, like a screw is a bit of treasure because it's metal.
Yeah.
The first thing he said when I saw him the other day, he said, "Can I show you my treasure?" And he pulled out stuff from his pockets, and it was just, he had bits of Lego and like a nail or something.
As long as they cling together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think he really had that in his mind because he would like move it around in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah. You know who does love boats as well?
You do.
Oh, I love boats, but someone who knows a lot more about boats than I say I would.
Captain Rob Morrison.
Captain Rob Morrison of the Curiosity Show, which we watch every week on this here, our own. I don't know how to make a link to piracy for this. Super Mind Stretchers. With me, Captain Ben Crisp.
First mate, Tom Crisp here.
And me, what's the lower one, like a swabber? Or like, I don't know.
Well, now you've gone and made me feel bad. I thought we were all
helmsman.
I thought we were all going to say captain before our names, and now it makes it sound like
you're
just
sort of like the captain anyway. I'm helmsman Brendan Williams.
Where we do watch the show hosted by Rob Morrison and Dean Hutton, the Curiosity Show. Great Australian science show. I'm distracted because I was trying to piece together what swashbuckler must have come from as etymology.
See, if I had to guess, like buckler is like a shield.
I think I might have looked this up at one point.
Oh, yeah? Do you remember?
No.
You're absolutely right. A buckler is that small shield. Buckler is like one of those terms I only know from video games, like growing up.
Like Diablo.
Yeah, absolutely. Just all the different pieces of inventory. So like,
there
would always be like gauntlets and bucklers and all this kind of...
Greaves.
Words for... I know more words for old-fashioned, old-timey armor than like actual modern like pieces of clothing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But to swash, apparently, is to swagger with a drawn sword.
Ooh.
And as if that isn't already just a cool concept,
swaggering
around
with a drawn sword.
And they needed to actually have a word for it because it must have been happening enough. Look at that guy swashing.
Oh, man.
And so a swashbuckler. But I don't picture pirates with shields. That's the tricky part of that. Right? Buckler, like a little shield. So maybe you are the the buckler in this. You are the swashbuckler. You're I don't know. I'm drawing a long bow to that, aren't I?
I think it's very evocative, though.
Swagger is the most important component of swashbucklery, I would say.
Swashbucklery.
Yeah.
Love that.
I think swagger is the important thing. That's what I think of. Just like something. I think of like Indiana Jones as a swashbuckler. Because there's something about having like a
drawn whip,
yeah,
drawn
and
sword.
just kind of like having vigor and adventure and swagger and.
I think swaggering with a drawn sword sounds dangerous. Probably something that your mum would tell you not to do. Don't swagger with your sword out. Put your sword away.
Is that the good
swagger.
sword? I told you not to. Yeah.
Now I'm in a very distracted mood because I've also got my little checklist of things to do. We did talk about Aphantasia.
Oh, yes.
Last episode, I believe it was, and Tom teased of a friend that he had who actually has aphantasia, and he was trying to tell us what he felt like their experience was. Well, that friend got in contact with me during the week, so I thought I might call them now and see if they want to tell us what their experience is like.
Oh, right.
We'll
nice
see if
one.
they pick up. Let's see if we go on speaker.
Can we just take a caller, maybe?
Yeah, we'll just take a call. It's ringing.
Like me, this person does have children that can absolutely derail this
everything.
kind of late night.
Josh, sorry I'm not available right now. Please leave me a short message and I'll get back to you if I can.
Josh, give us a call back. This is the Super Mind Stretchers podcast. We want to hear about your experience of aphantasia. Bye.
Okay, let's see what
we might
happens.
get it later.
Tension.
Maybe.
Later in the episode.
Now, I was saying aphantasia. I don't know if
Hopefully.
it should be sort of pronounced aphantasia, as sort of like an anosmia, whatever.
Yeah, because
I'm
a
not
person
sure.
with it is called an aphant.
Oh.
Apparently, I saw,
Aphant.
and I only know that because it popped up as a National Geographic sponsored ad thing during the week.
Right.
This is very
This
much
is-
an example of
National Geographic are listening to us.
Yeah.
Or is that, no.
the number of times I explained to students when they sort of say, yeah, but what about like my phone listens, and I try and go, no, it's not listening. I think it's just pulling data points together, and it's just like, yes, it's doing something more sophisticated than listening. But now I'm thinking like we did a podcast record about aphantasia. I didn't put the word aphantasia anywhere or Google it or anything. Did you Google it?
No, not in that week, no.
No.
It would be months ago.
So either maybe our listener Googled it, and because maybe they're connected to us, maybe that's how it's feeding it to me. Could just be coincidence,
could be.
I suppose.
I have tried to, because, I've definitely had that anxiety that I'm being listened to by devices before. And so I've tried doing a test where I would just writing down in paper and pencil to someone a word that I'm going, that we are not going to search or anything like that for a period of time. And then at a particular point, literally just sit in front of the phone and just say that over and over and over again. I think the one I chose at the time was Tim Tam.
All right.
Tim Tam, and said it really loud for a bunch of times. And within that next week, I was getting ads for Tim Tams.
Whoa.
And no, we hadn't searched it. It didn't come up in our, we don't normally buy Tim Tams. No one we know as far as we could tell.
Especially now that it's like transcribing, like Apple does this. Apple, if you leave someone a voice message, it transcribes, like it does, what's it? Speech to text transcription of the thing, which is really confusing because I didn't know that at first. So I kept thinking I was getting left text messages because it would pop up as like a banner thing, like in exactly the same style as a text message. And then I'm like, where's that text message? But it was a voice message.
At
I'm
least
easily
tell
confused.
me that that's what's happened.
And I'm sure they did, but tell me more times. And they probably did as well. But tell me in a way that specifically works for me. Use data that you know about me to figure out exactly what I want.
Exactly.
Even when I've got
if you're
ad
so
blockers,
smart.
and even when I deny and I turn on all the privacy things, so you can't have any of that, you should still know when I want the experience specified to me. Just do it without me knowing. Do it without me having an ethical quandary. That's what I really want.
Yep.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that. When you said, like, I thought you'd summon the Tim Tam monster or something like that. Just sitting in your room on your own. Tim Tam, Tim Tam, Tim Tam, Tim Tam, Tim Tam.
And that
Tim
genie
Tam.
appeared from the ads.
Yeah. That is an ad, I remember. You want a packet of Tim Tams that never runs out. Yeah.
That was his wish. I can remember as a kid thinking, well, you know what I would do with that? I would take it to Arnott's and go, hey, I'm going to remove your overheads for producing Tim Tams because this thing, and then I'd sell them and then I'd have the money. Because every time you ever win something or get something, I just wanted the money so that I could do whatever it let.
That's right.
To sell it.
Absolutely,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I wonder how quickly it would replenish the never-ending because he took it out and there was a little bit of a delay before the Tim. Sorry, we are referring to an ad for the biscuit Tim Tam that was from the 90s where a genie would come and give someone all the wishes that they would want, and the only wish they want is a packet of these biscuits that never runs out, and they would take a Tim Tam out and it would replenish.
Was that the punchline? What's it? Because genies do 3 wishes. Was it like 2 other wishes first, and then, or is it that they wish for that and then they don't even want?
Yeah,
I
I don't think they worry about it afterwards or something like that.
What about your second wish? And they're like, no, I'm good or something. But yeah, it was to do. I mean, Tim Tams we did not mention the other week when we were going through Australian inventions.
Yeah, right.
That would be up there.
Tim
for me.
Tams do garner some love from folks overseas who come and. In fact, when we went overseas last year, me and the band for the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, we brought a bunch of Tim Tams as a sort of like gift to like some of the folks who helped us and stuff. So we gave out lots of Tim Tams and fruit chocks, which is another South Australian treat.
Did your foot hurt?
A fruit choc.
Your foot hurt from dropping that bombshell?
Way!
We haven't talked about that on mic, have we?
Not?
I don't reckon we have.
Right.
I've heard bits and pieces. You went to Edinburgh for the Fringe this year, which is pretty fantastic.
Oh, man, it was
not
awesome.
not stand-up comedy in this
instance,
in
a music capacity, yes.
How was that?
I play in with a group of musos who, one lass in particular, Michelle Pearson. Shout out to my boss, Michelle. She's a great cabaret singer from around Adelaide way. And we were doing a show that sort of celebrated the Australian music that's sparked political or social change through the years. And it was a really fun show to be a part of. And we took it to, we got a little bit of, we went to Perth Fringe and got a little bit of attention there, won a Fringe Award over there. And then we took it back to Adelaide and we got a bit of attention here. And then we got the funding for to take it over to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival for a month.
So what's it like
in Scotland for
what's it like being on the ticket for like the Edinburgh Fringe?
It was just so rad. It was like once I'd convinced myself that I was allowed to do it, I was allowed to be there, and I was allowed to feel as cool as I felt about it. It was really cool, like wandering around Edinburgh with your artist's badge and just like taking the city in. And beautiful city. Oh man, I love Edinburgh. I'd only been once before, and not in a performance capacity. I was just traveling through the UK. And I thought, oh man, this place is rad. And to be able to go back and to be there for 4 weeks, it's just really, really cool. You're really like, it was a really, really cool amount of time because you kind of get to know the area, but you don't get too homesick or you don't like get to, And you got
to do a little bit of sightseeing and seeing some other shows?
Yeah, we had a couple of days off.
How many shows did you do?
We did like 30 shows.
Yeah,
so we were essentially playing every night. But
this is a show that's like Aussie music, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's stuff that Aussies would know pretty well.
Yes.
What was the crowd like?
Yeah,
response
we weren't sure how it would go down, but there is a lot of particularly. I don't know if we calculated this or whether it was just a happy accident, but it's obvious when you're after the fact when we're thinking about it that there's a lot of crossover between Scottish and Australian music, like especially with like Cold Chisel, like Jimmy Barnes, was born in Scotland, I think.
He's got an accent.
Yeah. And the Young brothers and like the AC/DC's Scottish heritage and whatnot. So we kind of garnered some fans there, like, and the Scots were just up for whatever and you know, Edinburgh Fringe, it just pulls out. People are just ready to try stuff. So it was really cool.
Did you have to do any like flyering, like going out and spruiking the show?
Yeah, we weren't super excited about doing that, but because I don't like bothering people, but it's just so the done thing in Edinburgh. Like everybody does it and people kind of expect it. So we did a little bit of that. We tried to be inventive about it. Like we busked a little bit.
Oh yeah, cool.
And handed some stuff out. But the coolest thing was, and people in the UK and people in Australia know this guy, Adam Hills, the comedian Adam Hills.
Yeah.
He's made it quite big over in the UK. He's got a show over there, but he's a sort of like a bit of a Australia's favourite son sort of thing as well. And he came to the show and just really, really liked it and came up and said g'day to us afterwards.
That's so cool.
And he was actually doing a show of his own. Well, of course he was. He's a stand-up comedian and he would do Edinburgh every year. And somebody mentioned it to him and he said, you should come and see this. And he did. And then from then on, a lot of the people that would come in, if we bumped into them afterwards, they'd say, oh, thanks for coming to the show. How did you hear about us? You know, sort of, and so many people said, oh, you know, Adam Hills was talking about you in his show.
Awesome.
And so he spooked us. He came back like twice and spooked us here. So he was just like such a nice guy.
That's awesome.
And so that was
he
really
wasn't
good.
doing you any favors. I saw the pre-show in Adelaide before you guys went over there. It's fantastic. You guys are an amazing
thanks, man.
group,
Yeah,
and it's a fun show as well.
Very, it was really, really fun. But I mean, maybe this doesn't say anything about the show, but my favorite part of being able was just those guys in the band, getting to hang out with them in a foreign country for a month. It's like
That's
touring,
cool.
yeah.
And that's what spills over into the show, though. I feel like I can
think so.
tell from, I also get to see the pre-show. Loved it. Fantastic. And
appreciate it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if proud to be Australian is the right word, but just like, it makes me feel very warm about Australian music and hearing it played back. And you guys all had such a good energy that really did spill out into the show.
Brilliant.
In a great
That's
way.
awesome feedback. Thank you.
It is like a cabaret thing as well. You're not like just a tribute band. It's like
No.
you guys are sort of telling a bit of a story of Australia through the music.
And I've certainly learnt a lot about it, and it's kind of changed my perspective on a lot of music that was like, because you know the cultural cringe can be a thing that sinks in, but to be part of something that tells the stories about the things I see a lot of these bands and a lot of these. I might not necessarily have ever seen the impact that they had without like having my eyes open to it. And now it's just like obvious the changes that they made and the stories and how much of a part of our story this music is. So yeah.
Did you get to see any other shows while you were over there?
Not too many because we were like playing every night, but I squeezed a couple in that I could. I was off on one night when Britannic were playing.
Oh yeah.
Britannic were doing their show, which is like, and you and
love
I, Ben,
Britannic,
and you too, as well, Tom.
yeah,
We've
back in the day.
been big fans of the Britannic comedy, the YouTube comedy, sketch comedy duo from the States. And when I saw a poster, I was walking past a poster for them. So posters work. Because I was walking past a poster, I'm like, oh, Britannic, when are they playing? And I went in and got a photo with them actually, and got that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that. Like, because they pull people up on stage for their thing, and I got pulled up on stage, and so that was a bit of a.
I don't know if you
highlight.
told me that you got pulled up on
Oh,
stage.
did I
What's
not?
what in a sketch or like?
Yeah, they were doing like that. I knew that it would be the kind of thing that they would pull up people just to embarrass like and be part of it. Yeah, it was part of a sketch because they handed out like $1 for some thing. And I just went, yeah, I'll take it. And I'm like, I bet this means I come up. And it was funny. I think some of my best acting was when they pulled me up, and I'm like, oh no, don't. I don't. Oh no, I'm sorry. Where
I was going to ask, are you a good audience member? Because you are a comedian and a performer. So does that make it better or worse when you get pulled up for something?
Well, that in particular, like, I don't think I'm very good. Like, I want to be like I would like to be funny if I was on stage. I don't trust myself as an improv person, but they, I just thought, I don't care if I embarrass myself. I feel like I'm not going to be funny when I'm on the stage with
you don't want to be trying.
But at the same time, I was just like thirsty for the story of being able to be on I'm glad that I did it because I get to say that I did it, and so that was kind of cool because I love those guys. And afterwards they were so accommodating when I asked for a photo, and
that's awesome. You had a bit of a side quest on this trip as well, didn't you?
I did have a bit of a side quest.
Sciencey-related,
a bit of a sciencey related side quest because we've spoken about Matt Parker a lot on the podcast, and Matt Parker from Stand Up Maths, and he did probably my favorite video of his from a few years back now was his North by North video, where he'd realized that there's three main definitions for the direction of north. True north, which is obviously a straight line between you and the North Pole. Magnetic north, which is the net direction that your compass will point when taking into account for all the sloshy magnetic field of the Earth. And then there's grid north, which doesn't really apply to anywhere else in the world but the UK, because on the Ordnance Survey maps in the UK, they, rather than have all your lines of latitude converge, they wanted the lines of latitude to be the same distance apart wherever you are latitudinally. So your lines of longitude lines of longitude converge.
Because they're so far north.
They're so far north.
In Scotland, they're all kind of going to be closer together than in, like, what's the very southernmost? John O'Groats? What's Land's End?
Oh.
Where's
one
the
or the other? I never remember which one's which. Yeah,
but they...
London,
innit? Torquay is very south. Is that on the south coast?
Penzance.
Penzance.
Beautiful
but
spot.
they wanted in an effort to get the lines of longitude, because longitude, the longitude lines, because longitude is how far east or west you are, so the lines are up and down.
And they've got like a really bad like mnemonic like device. So it's like they're long. They go long from the top to the bottom. They're really long.
Yeah.
And latitude is like flat. So they're like going flat.
Yeah.
And just don't think
about the other way around.
Yeah.
The one describes how high and low.
Man, we got into an argument the other day about Guy Fawkes. Remember the 5th of November.
Yeah.
And like, because we had a quiz question. I was like, what is Guy Fawkes? And I said, Kate, like, remember. She's like, oh, November 16th. I was like, what? No, but also there's a rime, but actually the rime is no help at all.
Because it could be.
She's like,
so we got the month bit already.
November is the bit that rhymes. So what's the number? I was like, it's not great.
Yeah.
We had 3 different candidates for that, and we were like just saying them over and over again until we were like, it was either 5th, 6th, or 12th, and we just couldn't get one that sounded right, but we ended up getting it right.
So latitude, flatitude,
longitude, long things, but
top to bottom of tube.
But they wanted on their maps for the distance on the map between those lines to be the same no matter where you are, and so
what does that help? Is that just when you're drawing?
It's a good question. I think they.
Because if you
wanted to, I think
had
they
a compass and you just walked north, but then you walked so if Tom was like on the east coast and I was on the west coast of the UK and we both started walking north, if we followed our compass, we would we also connect with each other? Because, like, would our lines connect because north to each of us?
Your headings would converge on the North Pole.
Yeah, so we'd both be walking towards a point. So we'd be getting closer together.
Yeah.
But if we were walking just along our lines of longitude, these ordnance ones that you're talking about, we wouldn't get closer together.
No, you'd be walking parallel.
Okay.
because
But if we took a map from somewhere else in the world
Yeah.
and followed their longitude, we would be
Yeah.
getting closer to
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was just you're going to run into problems whenever you're trying to project a spherical surface onto a flat plane.
Problems like that all the time.
Yeah, I know, right?
And then if you were
plagues me
walking
every day.
south
Yeah.
from Hadrian's Wall while Tom was walking east
Yeah.
from Stonehenge and I was walking west
Mm.
from Penzance
Wouldn't
to
happen.
Brighton
I wouldn't
to
do
the
it.
White Cliffs of
Yeah,
I
Dover.
wouldn't be going that way.
No.
No. If I were,
Could be contrary.
Tell us that Irish joke. Sorry,
yeah,
interlude.
my favorite Irish jokes. Like, I walks into a pub and asks the guy in the Irish pub how to get to Dublin. From how do I get to Dublin from here? And the publican says, "Oh, if I were going to Dublin, I wouldn't be going from here." But yeah, there's
so
a
north by
lot of
north.
setup for this,
Yeah.
but it
Right.
helps. This
show is mainly set up.
Yeah, it's all set
No
up
payoff.
all the time. No, but because it's such
You're
a
listening to Super Mind Switches on KBBM.
Yeah.
all set up all the time.
all set up
No
all the
payoffs.
time.
You've got an hour
set
of no
up,
payoffs.
Set up. But basically, because the UK is such a comparatively small country, the error of because it's not very wide,
Mhm.
they could get away with just for them just kind of going, look, we'll choose a line of longitude
Right.
and call that north. And then all our other north longitudinal lines on that map will be parallel to that.
And do you want that line to go through London, like Greenwich, or do you want
Yes,
that to
you
go
do.
through the middle of?
Yeah.
Actually,
No, you don't. You
you want
want it to go through the middle,
of
right down the middle of
British Isles.
And it says right 2 degrees west.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
right.
2 degrees west is the smallest whole number amount of degrees outside of Greenwich Meridian that runs pretty much straight up the middle of the Great Britain. It kind
Okay.
of splits it into,
Yep.
and because 0 degrees, which would be nice, is too far east.
Okay, but that goes through
but-
London.
But that goes through London.
London.
Yep. London. But then once you get to 3 degrees, it's sort of on the other side of the country and it kind of cuts off too much. But whereas 2 is a pretty good line that goes up.
Okay.
And so they use 2 degrees west as their grid north.
Okay.
Their grid north meridian, and then on ordnance maps, any parallel longitude line is actually parallel to that. And if you were to expand that system beyond the UK, the error would get more and more and more. And no longer you converging on the pole, you're kind of like slicing the Earth in loops rather
Perfect
than
metaphor for the British Empire.
yeah, there you go. But they just use that because it's kind of easier. That way they know that every degree is the same distance apart, whether you're near the north or near the south, and it just works for navigation within the UK.
Like how the Mercator projection, which warps the size of like Greenland and Canada and stuff, is useful for nautical navigation because it makes lines in the ocean like a straight line, rather than like what do you call it? Counteracts the curvature of the Earth.
I think you taught me that. Yeah.
I
So a
had
straight
to
line
learn
on a
about Mercator.
flat Mercator projection map corresponds to a straight line on the global surface.
Yeah, so that if you're
which is-
plotting your heading on a ship in the North Seas and stuff, you can use it. But has geopolitical and psychological kind of impact,
Yes.
as they talked about in an episode of The West Wing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they
Where
did.
talked
I
about
remember
all
that
the different,
episode.
like, maps, and then the upside down map that puts like an.
And they think it's going to be really boring to talk to this person who's suggesting a better map for classrooms, and they're like, "Oh, let's just get rid of this guy," and then they couldn't believe it, and it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
So, Brendan, you had a unique opportunity.
Yes.
In your time
So,
in
a
Scotland.
lot of setup to know that those are the three definitions of north. The true north, which is always easy. Magnetic north, which is always changing because of the molten core of the Earth. The magnetic field that affects your compass is always sort of slowly drifting. And then grid north, which is only relevant to people who live in the UK. But he figured out that for the first time ever, the three norths were converging on a point over land in the UK. So grid north only matters in the UK. And so for the first time, like ever, the point where there's always going to be a line where true north and magnetic north like match up. And where it doesn't, you call that your magnetic declination, like how many degrees off of true north your compass is showing. But there are places in the world where that's going to be zero, because if you're too far west, if you're too far east, like the intermediate point theorem says that you will be able to find a place that it is zero declination, so they match up. But never before had that really happened on 2 degrees west, which is your grid north meridian, over land. And it's during, I think it was around about 2021, maybe, it snuck onto the very south of the island of Great Britain, and slowly, because of the changing magnetic north, kind of started drifting upward. And so you could follow a line up to, because if you stand on 2 degrees west, then your grid north is going to be your grid north and true north are going to match. That's where they match. And then for the first time, it did kind of, you could stand on certain points of this, or one point, and you'd have a magnetic declination of zero. And it started to drift up. And Matt Parker, it's called, if you Google like Matt Parker or Stand Up Maths North by North, it's this great video about how he explains it a lot better than I did just then. But to
be fair, he doesn't get interrupted as much.
Yeah, well, yeah. But he actually like released like some tour merchandise, like the North by North tour, and it had a tour jumper with all the dates on the back, like the tour dates,
and where it's going to be,
quote unquote tour dates. But it was like showing like there and then up, and then in 2026, so next year, it'll pop out the top of Scotland. But because I was there last year, I was able to crunch the numbers on like magnetic north and like north calculators.
Oh, you had to calculate it.
Well, yeah, because I found some good. I learned a little bit about the different magnetic models that we use. So we've got the IGRF or the WMM, so the World Magnetic Model or the International Geomagnetic Reference Field.
Because how big is the pole? Like the magnetic pole? Because that's not just like a point on the ground.
No,
is it? That would have to be like
this is
huge.
This is what I learned. Like your compass is not attracted to a point. It points in a direction that is a net balance between the net magnetic field where you are. So if you look at like the field lines of the Earth, they're kind of all over the place. Like there's magnetic things, but I think I've got this right. But wherever you are, they all cancel each other out, and they kind of come to a net force that has poles.
Okay.
Like if you look at it holistically,
yeah.
And so like at any point it might pull a little bit west or it might pull a little bit east, but it kind of like cancels itself out. But that's why it's sort of like kind of changing. But I think there's other magnetic models that they use, but they're not very recently updated, and they're not used for very many things. But the most common ones are the World Magnetic Model and the IGRF. And
you could have just emptied the gunpowder out of your shells and just thrown
I could have followed it. Yeah. But in the end, I like went to 2 different places, and they were a day trip away. But I thought, hey, that's a good.
Did you have a compass, like a magnetic compass?
I looked everywhere for one,
and I wouldn't even know where you get one.
I went to camping stores. I went to hardware stores. I went to
like bath plugs.
Fishing
Could not
places.
Find a bath plug for the life of me when I lived in England.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I couldn't find one.
But you had your
end.
phone, which is a
I had my phone.
So you had a map, you had a compass, you had a ship.
Yes,
and you set off.
Yeah,
on a bit of a day trip.
Yeah, I did
overland.
I did overland.
He had his sword drawn and he was swaggering his way north.
But yeah, it was a lot of calculation because I wanted to know that I was standing on 2 degrees north. So I used Google Maps for that, and I plotted it on the Google Maps. But there were some really handy online calculators that show your magnetic declination at different coordinates. And I learned a lot about the different coordinate systems that you use. Like you can there's decimal degrees, or there's degrees, minutes, seconds, and then I found an online converter that would convert between those. So when I was using one side, it would be decimal degrees, and another one, and I'd have to convert and then plug it over and double.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a glutton for double checking, so I found these 2 spots that I could say within like X amount of decimal places of degrees. I would be standing on a point where if I point north, then you can't disagree with me because that is all definitions of north. And so
that's what mattered to you.
Yeah, that's what mattered to me.
Could not argue with you. I'm right about something.
You had to bring a magnetic scientist and an ordnance survey guy and someone else to be able to like go, tell me which way's north. All of you.
All of you that way. And so I got a photo of me pointing in all 3 norths. And that was just a great day.
Can we post that on the Instagram?
Yeah, sure. I'll find it. And
And we'll test your theory that photo, if you post that to the internet, no one on the internet will disagree with you about something.
I like to imagine.
I think I've got the date that I did it because it will be different now.
Yeah.
Like I've got I dropped pins on my Google Earth of the exact coordinates of where I was, and if you put them into the past calculators, you will get 2 degrees north, 2 degrees west, X amount of degrees north, and then it will say like the magnetic declination at this point on that day was 0. And yeah.
I like the novelness because I'm presuming you're just out in a field or something.
Yeah, it was just in a field. One place I took that Fiat 500 places that it wasn't supposed to go. Our friend Ness was with me actually because she was touring with us. No, she was on holiday, and she was in Europe at the time we were over there. So she thought she'd come and visit us. And then I put it out to the group like, guys, this is what I'm doing tomorrow with a hire car. Does anyone want to come with me? And Ness came with me. And she, the first one was easy because it was just off a road behind a paddock. And then the other one was like in the middle of like friggin' nowhere. And we had to go on this dirt track, and we had to go through some gates. She said later, she was such a good sport, actually.
She would have been perfect for this. You were very lucky that the one
she was
person
an enabler, big
who
time.
would have been excited to go on this trip with you.
Yeah. And she actually said...
Don't get me wrong, I'm like enjoying hearing about the trip. I would have been a hard sell to go on the trip with you, I reckon.
What's the point, Brendan? But she did end up saying afterwards that she would have stopped me if I had to open a gate. I went through all these gates that were like open, but if I were entering private property and having to open gates, she would have like probably.
But the country code is just,
as long as you shut it behind you.
Exactly. Oh, hello, we're getting a caller.
Oh, hello.
Hi, this is Mr Aphantasia.
Hello,
Mr.
That's a great
Aphantasia.
How are you?
I'm very good. I'm here with Tom and Brendan, and you're on Super Mind Stretchers.
My goodness, what an honour. I'm a bit starstruck. I've been a fan since episode 1.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, listener.
Now, do you want to identify yourself, or do you want to be anonymous?
I don't mind. My name is Josh, and I am Mr Aphantasia.
You are our good friend, Josh. Thanks so much for calling. So Tom told a story about having a friend with aphantasia. You reached out. You said, I think I am that friend. And I said, could you call in or could we call you and ask you a few questions about what it feels like? So can you remind us what aphantasia, and well, for starters, do we think we're pronouncing that right?
my understanding is yes. I should always preface this that this is self-diagnosed. So
because your profession, sort of, you're nervous about making any big statements about this, yeah?
No. So I do work as a psychologist. So in some sense, it would not necessarily be uncommon for me to see something like this. However, my understanding is it can only really be officially diagnosed through some kind of like MRI or brain imaging scan.
Interesting.
So
It actually shows.
not
Even that I
having
didn't know. So it shows up as something in the brain, does it?
yeah, that's my understanding. So like I've never really gone to like a professional about anything like this. I believe pretty similar to how Brendan was saying in the story about the radio host finding out when they were an adult, not really realizing that it wasn't the norm. It's probably really how it happened for me too. So,
Well, how did it happen? Do you remember when you realized?
That's a wonderful question. I don't distinctively remember. What a surprise. I can't picture it in my brain. But it would, I imagine, have been fairly sort of socially conversational based with friends, someone probably making a bit of a comment about seeing something and me being very perplexed as to that being very possible.
So remind us what this means and what does it mean in your experience?
Yeah, so my experiences would be that trying to picture any images in my head is near impossible. My understanding of the definition of aphantasia is it is both either the inability or the difficulty to voluntarily generate visual imagery. So I would say to some people, like, there are instances where I can get the most fleeting, vague image in my brain for probably like a quarter of a second if I'm lucky. But most of the time I'm sort of just, I guess, kind of rummaging through facts or concepts I know about something. So I have once seen I guess it's like an aphantasia test online where it's it says, imagine a 5-pointed red star. And there's like this, I think it's 5 or 6 images of clarity, and you can kind of like point out what's pictured in your head. So the top point is like this really sharp, clear red star. And then it just kind of like fades and is fuzzy and less detailed all the way down to just complete blackness. So for me, it would generally be the complete blackness, or just like a real faint, definitely black and white, just fuzzy idea of what a star is. Like, I can reproduce it. I know what it's supposed to look like, but I just can't picture it in my head.
So Josh, you're saying it's sort of, it can be on a bit of a spectrum of how strong.
Yes, absolutely. So I think from what I was reading when doing this test a while ago, that most people would kind of be on that upper end. Not necessarily everyone can picture it as the top level. But I think people were sort of saying that, true aphantasia really had to be in the lower 1 to 3 levels of that test, which was definitely where I was sitting.
So as a psychologist, you, I presume, talk to people about them thinking about their past or imagining things that have happened to them. Would that be right?
Absolutely, yes. And I work quite a lot with neurodivergence, and my understanding is that this is, when I say relatively common, I guess it's, maybe like proportionally more common for people with neurodiverse brains, particularly autism. So it's in fact one of my clients that I can conceptualize in my brain, not visualize in my brain. But we do sort of bond over the fact that neither of us can picture anything in our brain. But yeah, look, it's not uncommon for me to try and elicit past memories for those people. I think there's certain streams of psychology that are very like mindfulness and meditation based. I don't tend to find I have great success trying to implement them with my clients myself, because I can't really buy into the process myself from experience. So trying to teach something to someone that you don't really understand yourself is not an easy thing to do.
So when you try that, it's like, so just, picture yourself on a nice, calm beach. it's probably got purple sand and I don't know the really spiky water. Is that how that looks? I don't, you tell me. I can't picture this stuff.
Yeah, probably not too dissimilar. I mean, I would let them take their lead as much as possible, just trying to conjure up what they can picture, and probably half trying to do my job while half sitting in awe of just, oh my gosh, how are these people doing this?
That's really interesting because I know you've got a very good memory. It's not like you can't remember things or details or facts. You can recall things, like especially in like visual media, like film and TV and things like that. You can explain things quite clearly like that.
I think that's fair. I've never really thought of myself as having poor memory, and I did look. Actually, this was a recent bit of research that I did following on from my dinner with Tom, where he was referencing in that initial episode of the story. So we were talking there about, is it possible to be able to train somebody to improve their visualization? So I went down a mini rabbit hole, not too deep, just trying to see if that was something that existed, and pretty much everything I found was just suggesting that people with aphantasia tend to have very poor memory, so all of the interventions are pretty much based on improving memory. So I don't know, I think I'm just quite good at recalling the concepts, and one thing that I think I'm actually quite good at too is sort of audio memory. I can recall songs very easily. So sound is something that I can play in my head, and I probably rely on cues like that a little bit. So, you're referencing movies or TV shows. Like I might be able to hear a scene in my head, I just can't picture it. So it's honestly probably more akin to trying to replay like a radio script or a podcast episode, just to be topical for you, rather than watching the scene play through my brain.
Because there's memory associations that are audio based and there's visual ones. Like I know, how do you teach someone to improve their memory? Because ways that I've heard of things like, a memory palace, like visualizing things in a physical space or a visual space. But then children, we learn things by like songs and stuff, like, the order of the alphabet people learn through like a rhythm or a sound. So what are ways that you've heard that people are supposed to improve their memory, and then that by extension would help this?
Yeah, look, I think you've probably covered some of the key areas there too. We'd often be trying to link into various sensory experiences, so probably sound and sight are the easiest ones to train in that space. So I guess I'm even thinking back to my studies in high school and university and how I try and memorize concepts too. Like there was probably a lot of rote repetition, like mnemonics and different things like that, where you sort of getting the first letter of something that you're trying to remember and relating it to other concepts. Like for me, it's very conceptual based as well too. So I might try and link it to a fact that I know or an idea of something that I know. Again, not that I picture in my head, but I guess I can kind of link the concepts in my brain so that when one is elicited, the other one just kind of pairs along with it. But look, it's not something I do in my work very regularly. I think that's probably more like a neuropsychologist that would do that kind of work.
What about outside of your work? Has it ever come up? Like, is there any situations that other people would take for granted and then it like impacts you?
Well, look, I think I've been able to establish probably both the pros and the cons of this to some level. So I think I actually don't recall who it was on your podcast episode that said this too, but the inability to picture my own family. So I've got a wife and 3 children, and I can't really picture them at all if they're not in front of me. So if I'm ever away or something like that and missing them, I think that compounds it a little bit, not really being able to visualize that. The flip side of this, and I actually say this to clients sometimes as well, is I actually think it's quite a good buffer against trauma. Like it's very hard for me to get caught up in the re-experiencing of images. So like a particular incident in my life that I went through that was quite a traumatic experience, and it's probably the most vivid-ish version of a visual memory that I have for my scale. But I think I imagine that it's probably less than most people would have in their normal field of visual mind's eye. So I feel like that really reduces my distress of the re-experiencing in that space. So that can be quite good. I don't really get nightmares. I don't really get dreams really either. So take that for what you will. If you have good dreams, that's probably a con that I miss out on them. If you have bad dreams, that's a pro that I don't get that either.
Yeah, wow.
Super interesting.
Oh.
I don't know if we talked about this, Josh, on that night when we were discussing Aphantasia, but does anything help if you've got a visual cue in front of you that's not exactly the thing that you're trying to, or being asked to imagine, but it's somewhat like it? Say it's one type. There's a green box in front of you and you were asked to imagine a red box. Does having an existing cue in front of you change it at all?
That's a good question. I probably never really tested that out specifically. I can't see color, so I don't think the red or green would necessarily make a difference. But I suppose if you gave me an image of a box or square in any capacity and then took that away and asked me to recall it, I think they're probably the ones where I would get a little bit more of an image that decays incredibly quickly. In my mind, I guess it's sort of just primed in the brain there, but yeah, I can't really bring it up at will or hold it for any extended time.
That was an interesting part for me, where you described the image being there, but being so fleeting. Whereas I think initially I thought that maybe there was just no image, like a complete lack of image. But that is interesting that it can be there, but just super fleeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly, I think a second would be the total max that I could get it. And if I'm on a good day, I might be able to kind of bring it back a couple of times for that short experience once again too. But yeah, that's me on a good day.
What's your fashion sense like?
You would be able to comment quite clearly that it's poor, Ben, I would imagine, from your interactions with me.
Does it impact on that, do you think? Do you see, is it hard to look at clothes and then think, would I look good in that? Can you picture yourself in wearing something?
No, definitely not. I think, trying to imagine myself in anything. I actually think I'm an ambitious person, so I can conceptualize again. I think that's probably the real theme here is I can conceptualize things well, just not visualize things well. So a vision board is useless to me, but an ideal that I'm trying to get towards or what that might look like for my life in a non-visual sense is quite easy for me. I think another thing you guys haven't asked directly about this, but creativity is probably an interesting dynamic where this comes up as well. So I obviously in my conversations with you, Ben, you're very visually based in a lot of your past work and experiences, and I probably find that more fascinating than I would anybody else in that sense, because I just can't imagine it. You know, people who are artistic, they can draw things. Oh man, it blows me away. My 4-year-old son can draw better than I can by far, because I just can't really picture what I'm supposed to be drawing. Whereas like musically or I guess, like dramatically, not saying I'm elite in either of those spaces, but certainly a more comfortable creative medium for me.
And you can, you can tell a story, you can engage with art, but you're saying that trying to picture something to draw it. I was going to ask about that. How are you in a game of Pictionary or something like that?
Pretty poor. Again, I know what things are supposed to look like, so it's not like I can't draw something, but I guess not really picturing it in my head. And this is not actually Pictionary, this is charades, but I do have a core memory of playing charades with yourself and your wife, Ben, and she was not able to get what I thought was an amazing clue, and I just didn't really know how to pivot off of that clue because I'd run out of conceptualized points for it. I can't picture any other way to do it. So Pictionary is probably an even worse version of that for me.
You're still nowhere near the worst Pictionary, charades job that I've ever seen, though. Did I ever tell you about my sister-in-law when at Christmas one time in Europe, and she was banging her fists on her legs over and over again, getting so furious that no one could guess what it was. And finally we all gave up. And she said, it's Scrubs. It's the TV show Scrubs.
Yeah,
And we
that's
said,
like
what do you mean? And she goes, I'm banging my shin bones. Bones like a dog chews on. Like the dog, that stuffed dog they've got in the apartment in that show Scrubs.
Well, that's a deep cut.
That was the longest drawn bow I've ever experienced. So you're still a long way from that. And does it make you feel better or worse that I don't have aphantasia, but I am also terrible with fashion and cannot draw to save my life as well, even though I can picture things relatively clearly in my head?
I would say it makes me feel no different one way or the other.
That is the correct answer. Good job.
Do you have any questions for us fants? Is that what we're called?
Oh yeah, because you're an aphant and we're
yeah,
fants.
no, there was a term for this. I think it was like hypophantasia, but that was for people who beyond a strength. So I imagine there's something a little bit more in the middle.
Elephantasia.
Yeah, maybe you are just fans. I don't know.
Fancy. I think we're just fancy.
Maybe my question is just, what am I missing out on, guys?
That's what I'm trying to think of now. When does it come in? I mean, it did make me a little sad when you said you don't think you dream, although I think there's people that don't dream and it's not necessarily aphantasia as well.
True, and I did read that there are some people with aphantasia while awake but can dream. I have had dreams before as well, and again, I think how I described it earlier, like almost like listening to a radio broadcast, is probably a good way of trying to explain it to you. Like, there have been times where I've had some form of dreams where it's almost like shadowy figures moving around. Like I kind of it's like I've sort of got a spatial awareness of what's supposed to be happening. But certainly not like this clear-cut image. But, these things are always so difficult to try and differentiate because, the mind's eye is the mind's eye. I can't really understand what you see. You can't understand what I see. And, maybe we're closer to each other than we realize. We just don't have the shared language for it. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds right to me because even I do think I can picture things, but if I were to describe it to someone, it would be a very abstract concept. Like it's not, and I don't know how I would be on a scale of like the fuzziness isn't a problem, I don't think, and how long I can hold an image in my head. But I was going to ask you as well, does closing your eyes make any difference? Because for me, I don't know where I'm spatially putting the image when I'm told to think of something. So I don't know whether I'm even visualizing things.
I guess closing my eyes makes a difference because the interference of just the world around me is going to be too strong for my brain to come up with anything else if my eyes are open. But I think that if I'm kind of giving my visual skills a percentage out of 100, I'm giving it like 3 or 4. So 3 or 4 out of 100 as opposed to 0 out of 100. Take that increase as you will.
Yeah, well, I think I'm definitely going to seek out one of those aphantasia test things that you said you found on the internet.
Honestly, if you just Google aphantasia test, it's like one of the first things that comes up. So I've seen 2. There was one that was like, that the star that I talked about, which I think probably captured mine a little bit better. It was probably a bit more gradient in the changes. There was another one I'd seen that was like a robin or a bird or something like that. And that just, I think the jumps felt too big to me. But again, but all of them sort of articulate the point quite well. One for the listeners at home, just to add to their YouTube clips for the week.
Well, that example in particular, just the idea of the test had I'm fascinated by that, and I definitely want to try it because of a couple of things that Tom said. The idea of it being a spectrum. And I hadn't thought of it like that. And it's kind of got me questioning my ability to visualize things. I think I'm quite a visual person, but it's made me think a question I wanted to ask about finding things, because I'm particularly good at putting something down and forgetting where I've put it immediately. And so when I'm looking for something, I think maybe I would be guilty of going, where's my Makita hand drill? I know it's I know it's that teal blue of this shape, and I last used it here, and I'm visualizing where I last used it so I could go and see it. Is that what's your experience with locating things, if that's not too ignorant a question?
No. It's interesting because my wife, when I've had these discussions with her, she is very visual, and like I would say, is like the total opposite end of the spectrum to me on this. And yet she is the one who's always losing things, and I am the one who is never losing things. However, as I'm sure she'll probably listen to this episode and be upset with that feedback, I would say I overcome that by like very systematically having a place for everything. So I don't really need to know where I've put it.
Yeah.
Because it is where I always put it, whereas she will put anything everywhere. Maybe she's relying on that visual memory. But interesting enough, I've never reflected on this ever. So this is a thought
okay,
on the
well,
fly.
there you go.
But my kids are obviously always putting things everywhere.
Yeah, sure.
And I am so paranoid all the time about losing things. Like if everything's scattered, it's like I can't even really focus on anything until I've located where all of the potential lost things are.
Right.
I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that I don't trust my ability to find it.
Yeah.
If it's not where I know it, or if that's for some other reason, I don't know. But certainly is a quirk.
Yeah. So because you can't think of a time that you actively develop that as a defense mechanism, that you just have always sort of found that as one of your traits?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And it's interesting enough with aphantasia, my understanding is it's either from birth or through like an acquired brain injury or something, or illness. So I believe that I've had it my whole life, and thus I suppose it's one of those ones where you sort of adapt the workarounds without even realizing that you have had any need to do it, because it's all you've ever known.
Yeah. And another like thing that interests me is the difference between conceptualizing something and knowing how, as you say, when you're drawing. And I'm stuck on the idea of a star and the different levels of accuracy and a resolution that you could have this star at. I think I'm stuck on the difference between conceptualizing something and being able to visualize. And this is what I suggested to my own brain. Let me know if this is anywhere near a good description. But the idea of being able to draw a star for Pictionary or something, so you can conceptualize what a star is. Would that mean, like, I imagine I would see the whole star in my head, and then I know about the angles and the lines. And I suppose if you were to draw a star, it would just be, you'd have to go down to a smaller level of granularity and just think about the angles and the lines and just go step by step.
Yeah, I think step by step is probably a good thing. Like, to me, it's almost like a list of facts. So I'd be like, a star is usually 5 points. It is triangular in nature. There's normally like 1 at the top, and then 2 on each side at the top, and then like 2 on each side at the bottom. So like I kind of list that in order in my head, and then it's just like I'm just kind of recreating what that is. Interesting with this, like the only way I can even do a star that I would say looks remotely passable is if I do a triangle and then the upside down triangle.
Yeah.
That's really the only thing I could do. So I'm not really worrying too much about the angles, because I'm just...
To be honest, I also really struggled to draw a star if it wasn't that 2 triangle one, because I always start with some triangles, and I wouldn't have had a good idea of how many triangles I was going to draw, and then I get to the end and I had to do a really big one or a really small one just to finish it off.
Oh, in this political climate, that's not the one.
Nah.
Well, when we first were having this conversation, when Tom came over for dinner, and I believe the question he asked at the time was about a tree, asked if I was to draw a tree, what would I do? And I don't remember exactly how I answered it on the night too, but I think for me, like I'm very what I might call like preschool-esque, in that I would either just draw a triangle to be the whole tree with the trunk at the bottom, or like a circle at the top. Whereas if you were to try and like say to me, okay, I want you to draw this type of tree or this type of tree, like I would find that incredibly difficult. And even something like, I'm thinking now, a maple leaf, I know sort of how that looks. I know that there's, again, that kind of those like triangular type of points, and in some sense, I'm kind of thinking it almost like a half star with a bit more roundedness. But like I can't see it, and therefore my ability to produce something like that maybe is not as common a concept in my head is just going to be like a dog's breakfast.
I think that's why I chose tree for that example, was something more vague or more general to see how your brain went around about picking which tree, because you've presumably seen a bunch of different types of trees in your life.
I have.
So I wondered, I think at the time I was wondering, would your brain just go to the last tree you're thinking of, or the most common one that you see, or one in your backyard, like a specific tree, or because I guess that for me was an example of where if someone said, think of a tree, and there's a whole, it's almost like a quantum superposition of trees until I decide which one I want to think about, or which one I'm visualizing. And then if you said draw that tree, it's like, well, which one did I pick? And how did I come about? If I'm not thinking of a specific, say, willow tree, how would I draw a willow tree? But I know the idea of it. And then why did I pick a willow tree? And that's just what came to my mind. Is that's the bit where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, what would happen for a generalized question for someone with aphantasia?
It's probably whatever I've had the most repetitions of with the concepts of it. Like, this is not at all the trees, but this actually reminded me as well. So I have a bit of a real quirk for thinking people look like other people, but not always being able to identify who that is. So I'd say I'm a very frustrating person to watch a TV show or a movie with, because I've got IMDb ready to go all the time, and I'm bringing it up and I'm going, you look like a cross between someone and someone. So like there's something visual that my brain is trying to kick into gear there. And sometimes I can get it, and I just instinctively get it. But again, I'm like being prompted with that. That's right in my face. Like, this is not conjuring an image in my head. And I guess in there, I'm sort of searching for patterns of familiarity. Yeah. And so that's probably how my brain is trying to best produce visual things where it can.
Right. And it's funny you should mention like TV, because that's another thing I was thinking of, like what sort of like your what your favorite movies and TV shows are. And because I will often think about my favorite TV shows and I'll imagine them, and I'm like, I'll imagine a scene from it, and I'll remember a scene, and I'll think, oh, that's great. But is watching your favorite media feel like coming home to an idea or a vision, because you can only imagine it or see it when it's being displayed to you? I'm interested to know about that too.
Yeah, I guess so. Like my nostalgia for my favorite things is often rooted in the quotes, or the plot lines, I suppose. So I do quite like comedy. Interestingly enough, I'm very drawn to like mysteries and whodunits and suspenseful type things too, which is funny because I want to run every theory about who the possible culprit is, but certainly not that I can visualize who would have done the scene in some way. I guess maybe this is the psychologist side of me. I'm trying to pick up on the body language or the different cues, or the psychoanalyzing of the character's motives more so than anything else. But yeah, if we're reminiscing about, like, even say your podcast, obviously is a nostalgia-based podcast. So I said to Tom the other day, I was not probably quite to the age where this was a prominent part of my childhood, but I'd certainly seen enough episodes that when I found out you guys were doing this podcast, I was like, yeah, I remember that show. This would be great to try and go down memory lane in some way, shape or form.
Is there anything you do remember about the Curiosity Show?
The closest thing I can probably get to, and I'm a bit of a facial hair aficionado. I remember the moustache, but I don't visualize the moustache, but I remember the concept of the moustache.
You're on the right path, mate.
Oh, don't worry. I got great joy last episode hearing about the moustache that you were growing, Ben. That was actually my original message to you was about that, and then as I'm messaging you and still listening, myself comes up as a topic of conversation.
We can give you a live update, Josh. The moustache is looking good on Ben, growing a bit more full.
Mm-hmm.
As it's filling out, the little gap just directly beneath the center of the nose is starting to, part like the Red Sea. So
yes, I know that. I know that experience.
That could be stylistic choice, though, or look as well.
It's going to do its own thing. Like the hair on top of my head, which has got about 40 widow's peaks. This moustache is going to have its own personality. I can tell already.
Yeah.
I often say when I age up and lose it all on top that I'll just comb it over from the beard or the moustache.
You've got a face for a moustache as well, Josh. Have you ever done just the mo?
I absolutely have done just the mo in multiple styles.
Yeah,
One of my strengths is growing facial hair very quickly, so I can experiment quite easily.
So in terms of the facial hair of the Curiosity Show, where does it rank in the great facial hair of film and TV for you?
I quite like that. I think in one of the first episodes, someone was likening it a bit to Tom Selleck, and I think that's a very apt comparison. I like it's powerful, it's bushy, but it's not too overbearing on the face too. I quite like it. So
authoritative, but homely.
echelon.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, we haven't even watched a clip yet on this episode, so we're going to have to let you go because you've done us a huge favor by calling in late night. You've got kids that you're looking after. You've just given us a very personal and generous insight into Aphantasia, and also to cap it all off, you've got the psychology, language, and background on top of your own reflection and introspection. So you've just been an absolute top guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Josh.
When you're dealing with 3 top-tier scientists like yourselves, you've got to try your best to fit in.
I'll take it.
All right. Good on you, mate. We love you, and look after yourself, mate.
No, you too. Thanks for checking in and love the show. Happy to make it to episode 300 soon.
Thanks,
Good on
mate.
you, mate.
See ya.
Thanks, mate.
See you guys.
Bye.
What a champion.
That is fascinating. That was so interesting. And he talked about something I thought about, which was, I wonder if there is a benefit to it in that you can't remember things like images. I'm like such a scaredy cat with like images from movies or just things in life or just scaring myself by just imagining a thing.
Yeah,
and just kind of like, why did that thought come into my head or that image come into my head?
Worst case
Something bad
scenario.
happening. Yeah,
yeah, that's a good
often
point.
Visual.
The intrusive thoughts of visions, and like if I didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, like my brain just suddenly going, oh, it'd be really bad if this happened.
God, get out. Yeah.
So maybe some hidden blessings.
He did mention like liking mysteries and stuff. The like all those whodunits and even like political thrillers and stuff, like all your the Jack Ryan stuff and all those ones that my dad used to watch, that I used to watch. I could never keep up with them because I couldn't remember people's names. I couldn't remember. So to have to have a better memory for names and concepts and linking that that would be like that would be just an interesting like a different way of thinking, a different skill to have that I could probably do.
Well, I wonder if we're going to just have more aphantasia moving forward because we're just so reliant on phones, and kids will just have cameras. You don't have to remember much. I'm pretty bad with directions already. Like I wasn't bad back in the day, but now that I've just like not had a street directory, like a printed street directory in my car for years, which is ridiculous because I'm definitely going to have that day when my phone goes dead or something happens. And
I actually find myself making a conscious effort to like look at the route beforehand and then just kind of not, because I like internalizing things like that. So yeah,
I do the exact same thing, and I didn't realize I was a bit weird for doing it. I think I just hadn't talked to enough people, been in enough other people's cars, to realize that everyone just
pretty much
relies
everybody
on
does
directions, even for places they've been a million times. I like that as well.
I think you need to use it for places you've been for a million times, because if you use it and rely on it, I find that I never remember where I'm going if I'm using it. But if I use it once, get there, and then try to do it without it, then it's there, and then like more. Yeah,
it's definitely something about putting into practice the knowledge that you've got. I just can't be bothered.
I know what you mean.
Who's got the time to do stuff?
I know what you mean. Pick your battles. Pick your battles. But so cool, just to like to give so much of his time, because like I think I needed like him to be so generous with sharing information before I said anything, because I was just so petrified to insult someone with insult them with my fascination. Like I don't want to
because it is a condition, isn't it?
The poor blokes might have had to deal with that a lot. So I'm just kind of like, I really want to ask a question, but I do not trust my ability to ask him something that's not going to be like really like offensively ignorant. So, but the amount that he was sharing it for, I'm like, maybe I'll ask a few things now. So I'm very grateful.
Ask
that
me anything sort of segment or you can't ask that. What's that show? Where they
he definitely put me at ease, is what I'm saying, which he didn't have to do.
Now you mentioned Jack Ryan.
Yes.
Just hold on, buckle in, because this sharp left turn of a segue tangent is going to knock you out of your seat. But this video with Dr. Rob Morrison is called Simple Boot Jack.
Oh,
so we got the Jack in there. It did. My brain thought it was
Jack.
Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder for a second there.
Right.
But this is Simple Boot Jack. And look, we mentioned Rob, so I thought I'd find a Rob clip here. And again, this is only uploaded 12 days ago. They're uploading week to week.
Oh, we're a topical podcast now.
Yeah.
Simple Boot Jack. So good.
Oh, outdoors.
Yeah, like a wood cabin.
I want to go there.
Now for the hard part.
Oh, he's
Getting
trying.
these off. Chopping wood's okay. Removing Wellingtons can be almost impossible, especially if your feet have got a bit sweaty inside them. Still, there is a simple solution. Have a look at the heel of the boot. Most Wellingtons come to you with a sort of ridge around there, especially built up at the back, because they're designed to be moved with a boot jack. Haven't got one? Well, you can make one. It's very simple. I'll make a quick one here to show you the principle. All you really need is some scraps. And you start with a board about that length. This is just a bit of old ceiling board. You have to remove from one end a sort of V. I'll draw it in. It's rather like an arrowhead. Here we go. From one corner, we come back about there. And then if we take that out to the other corner, that's the part that we have to chop out, all in there. So I'll just do that quickly on the edge of the veranda. Here we go.
So we've got Rob outdoors at like a log cabin.
Yeah.
He's come back with a wood axe and a bunch of firewood.
Yeah.
And now he's showing us how to make a boot jack. So we've got a little bit of plywood. What about
it's
or
probably
pine
what about 16 mil thick?
like
It's
a
probably about
paperback?
150 mil wide by like 300 mil long.
Sounds
those
good to
wood.
me.
And he's just taken the short end and he's drawn a little V cut out, so it would end up, cutting out a little V. Yeah, wood. Yeah, the old.
Your voice
materials.
changed a fair bit then as you were
I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
on the spectrum down towards Papa Leo there.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I don't know, Benny. Oh, he's got the rip saw out. Rip saw, pull saw, crosscut saw. Looks like a rip saw to me.
Right into the centre, turn it over, and go from the other corner in to meet that one.
We're going to get this in real time.
Using the good saw.
Now that's the operational part of the boot jack, but no good to us
I
like
love the
that.
way he
We have to
talks.
jack it up on a piece of wood like that. That's really just wide enough to go across, so we cut it in two, and that will
Wolf
give
or
us
something
the
in the
need.
background of the video.
Yeah. Because there was a dog in the background before, because he's had his
And now,
weekend
put them
getaway.
together. That one goes over there,
He's
so
putting a
the
little...
V is just clear of the part really underneath the seesaw, and we put a few nails in just to hold it in place.
Brendan will be able to tell us what type lever that would be.
That's good. That
Don't have to be
probably
awfully
would
long
be a
nails,
type
guys.
type one, I would
Type
say.
seesaw.
It doesn't really take much of a
Seesaw.
strain.
Type seesaw, yeah. Just in order
And
to
that, believe it or
put
not,
that
is the
board at
finished
an
boot
angle.
jack. The way it works is this. Come up here, and instead of trying to strain away like that, put the boot jack in front of you and put 1 foot on that part there. That means you can now hook that rise on the heel into this, and it's very easy. You just pull the boot straight off like that.
There you go,
So
eh?
that's a rough one. Why don't you make a good one and give it to somebody as a present?
I love that. Make a good one, make a nicer one, give it to someone as a present.
That's a great
line.
Great song.
curiosity. This bit. Show.
Brilliant. We haven't listened to that yet.
Yeah. Oh, that's the main title song. But
I'm going to clip that and put that just at the end of our
Yeah.
this week. That's great.
Show. Boom. But like I love the way Rob talks. Just I love the sentiment of, make a present for your friends, because like the idea of making a present for someone is just like, of course they're encouraging that sort of good-natured sort of a thing. But the two of the things that he said in there that struck me of just, I love his turns of phrase. Just when he's pointing out the ridge on the back of the heel of the boot that allows you to catch it on a boot jack. He just says, most Wellingtons come to you with a ridge like that, just like most of them come to you like this.
Right, yeah.
And what was the other one that I looked at you when he said? Can't remember.
You can find it again.
There was another little turn of phrase that he used. That's just.
What was the bit?
It was when he goes when he finished the top part before he put the little fulcrum bit on it that would ramp it up so you could get your foot under it. He said, "Now that's the operational part of the board." I just love the way he talks.
Now pay attention, Bond. This is the operational part of the board.
I like the secondary benefit to the gift, suggesting to make it as a gift, because not everyone would have a need for one. But you could, if you open up your thinking to all the people that there probably would be one person that might need one. So, and more people to make them.
And I do love boot jacks, actually.
You use one?
Like I have used one. I don't have one at the moment, but they do. Just the idea of getting to a door and there being something there that you can just kick your boots off.
Yeah, I've seen them built into like the boot scrapers and the boot brushes and stuff that are out, the front of like old cottages and I'm holiday houses.
I will defend anything like this that looks a little bit like superfluous, but honestly, like shoehorns, boot jacks, back scratches, anything that you could go, oh, well, that's a bit silly that you have a thing designated doing that. When you have one, it just like the ease that it brings to your life.
See, I'm a shocker for just stepping on the back of my heel to pull off my shoes as well. But what's different about this boot jack then? Because functionally, operationally, is it not doing the same?
Well, with Wellingtons, like if you got your big boots, I don't know if you're like, I do that with my Rossies because they're really easy to catch the heel off and just kick them off. But if you do have big, tall, like muddy Wellingtons that like sometimes they won't have the other shoe won't have the necessary grip to hook onto the
that's true
thing, and because they're so tall, there's a lot more force and angle required. I don't know.
I guess this is giving the inverse of your own. If you use your own boot, you've got a point on the tip of your toe onto the back of the other boot, and the V sort of creates you're getting like, I don't know how to describe the inverse of that. It's like you've got the two sides that are grabbing the boot rather than a
it's a
point.
wedge, isn't it?
a
It's
point.
like holding onto the sides.
And also, what's your grounded foot doing in this when you're like lifting and struggling to get one leg out? It's firmly planted on the ground, standing on the boot jack.
Yep.
Whereas if you're using that foot to catch the other thing, you don't have as much of a firm plantation. So,
and then once one foot's out, I'm using a sock to go on my muddy foot as well.
Yeah,
and I presume also you're sort of putting pressure on the fabric or the kind of the leather or the softer part of the boot, not where it's like being cobbled in properly in as well. I've never successfully used a shoehorn. Have you ever done shoehorns?
Shoehorns are great for if you've got laced up shoes and you're too lazy to like undo them, or if you kick them off, you can get them back on with. And it's also good because shoehorns with a really long handle, they're great for older folks who have trouble sitting and bending down to get their shoe. Like you can hang one on the door, and then you can pretty much go up to a shoe, slip the shoehorn in, and then pop your shoes on just like completely from a standing position. So that's really.
Do I need to like watch a YouTube video on properly how to put a shoehorn in a shoe and do it? Because to me, I feel like I need like tongs.
I think you couldn't lose
the loop on the back of boots,
Yeah.
like where you can stick your finger through that loop and pull them up.
A
yank
big
them
fan
up.
of that.
That
loop.
makes sense to me, right? That's gripping the back of the boot.
Can
where
I show
need
you
it.
my boot at the moment?
Please.
This is my favorite back loop because my last ones had material. These ones have leather.
Okay,
So it's
that's a hefty boot. Yeah, and that's a decent sized loop, right?
It's a-
You'd get 2 or 3 fingers.
it's a
in that.
leather rear loop,
Yep.
which is awesome because the rigidity in the leather keeps the loop open.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you'll notice the front loop is kind of like fabric. So in order to get your finger in there, you kind of need to separate it a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But because of the rigidity, it kind of holds its openness, and it's so easy to just get your finger in that boot loop.
Have you ever
know what
taken
I mean?
boots or shoes to a cobbler or a shoe repair
I
place?
need to. I've got a really good pair of RMs that did you have any recommendations? For
No,
local
I'm
cobblers?
curious. I wouldn't even know where to go in town here.
I have, but just for climbing shoes because I do indoor
Mm.
bouldering, and the rubber on those shoes is very soft, which is good for stickiness to the
Mhm.
holds in the wall. But that means it wears through quite well. If you've got poor footwork like I did or probably still do for many years, you need to get that replaced on just the tip. And there's actually just a shoe repair place in the city on Hutt Street that's that I recommend.
Could you tell by another climber's shoes, like Sherlock Holmes style, like if they're like a bad at their footwork or something like that?
Yeah.
If you were in a remake of the Eiger Sanction, the 1970s Clint Eastwood film based on the novel by, I want to say, Trevanian,
Sure.
about like an assassination that has to happen on a rock climb, right?
Oh, really?
Could you sort of suss out like, this guy is not a real climber, or his footwork's going to be poor, so I could maybe.
I reckon Clint is a real
really?
climber, though.
I would believe
I
it.
think he, In fact, I think
Climbing
I saw Alex Honnold do one of those pro climber breaks down climbing in movies. I think he watched that one and really liked Clint from memory.
Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. I think I am.
Or maybe he didn't. I can't remember. It was one or the
it's-
other.
it's one of those
the other.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He certainly
bad.
wasn't nonplussed. It was-
I
So we
think
don't know more than what we knew before you told that anecdote.
Yeah.
But,
Mhm.
we don't know less.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
I think I'm experienced enough to be able to say if someone is a climber or not, like if they have any ability at all. I think I'd be able to identify from shoes if they, whether they were a climber or not. But then there's a point where it probably goes in waves where there's some people who are many years more experienced than I am, and their shoes are probably really beaten up. And I don't know if I'd be able to exactly tell whether that's because they had poor footwork or it's just they've been using the
So
same
if they
shoes
had
for
boots
years.
like these,
Yeah.
like these boots here.
You're getting the leg up
that-
quite a way. I'm
Thank you.
impressed.
That is
the
some-
flexibility is good there.
Yep,
Some
I've
tough
pulled
rubber
something.
on them.
That'll
You don't stretch
I'll pay
before
for that
podcasting.
tomorrow.
Always stretch before podcasting. That's 101.
I think you'd beat up the wall. You'd win that fight.
Oh yeah, I think I'd win that fight. Take these Rossies.
We've been all over the shop, but we did get a clip in.
Yeah, we did.
Simple boot jack.
That's great.
Simple boot jack
Simple
for a
boot
couple
jack.
of simple boot jacks.
Yeah, they could take. I could see you being called Simple Boot Jack.
Yeah, simple
Just around
boot
the
jack.
farm. Give it a simple boot jack.
The other thing that's related to that I will include, because I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to talk about this again, but like little ideas like the shoe horns and the boot jacks. There's another one for older folks to put like socks on.
Oh.
And I've seen this, like you can make it out of this is a Curiosity Show episode in itself. You can make it out of string and like Coke bottle. You cut like a semicircular length of Coke bottle, so it's like a cylinder cut down the middle, so you kind of get a little half pipe like a skateboarding thing, and you kind of tie a loop of string on it long enough to dangle it down by your feet. And so if you're sitting on the edge of a bed and you want to put your socks on, like reaching to your foot to loop it around your toes and pull it up, that's a movement that's only going to get harder as we get older. And so what you do is you have your little helper in your hands and you stretch the sock over and there's like factory made ones of these that you can get, but I've seen homemade
something
ones
in hospitals for like compression socks and things like
you
that.
stretch the sock over it, and then you throw that on the ground with your and hang onto the piece of string, and you put your foot into the now open sock that's being held open by the piece of PVC, and slip your or PET rather, and slip your toes in there and pull on the string and pull it up and then over your foot, and then you retrieve your helper to put on the next sock. And I just think that's a simple little solution that, like, in a position where that's difficult.
So
brilliant.
that combined with a shoehorn and a boot jack, and we're like 5%
You'll never
of
have
our
to
way
bend down again
towards a Wallace and Gromit style kind of getting dressed in the morning machine, which is really all I'm
And that see-through
looking
toaster
for.
we've talked about previously. Yeah.
Yes.
We're there.
No. I don't want to see through toaster with this. I just want the toast to get shot out into a buttering and jamming kind of contraption, Rube Goldberg style.
If we make the toaster,
it will probably
fling
see
them
through.
out terribly like
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
Not supposed to, but
But if you make a simple boot jack, why not make one for your friends so then you can
Try it on your friends.
I want to know. Curiosity.